Kore Mapenduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that brings you the latest news in Africa and beyond. My name is Glenora Shipura, joined by Diana Master. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. A bit fluish, but very well.
But very well. I think it's because of the rain.
Yes.
I mean, we are grateful.
I played a little bit in the rain. I'm a bit embarrassed.
I mean, you know, you got to make memories while you're young, play in the rain.
You have to.
Let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. World Food Programme lifts suspension of operations in Sudan. France lets aged African army veterans finally go home. Sudan hospitals short of medicine and staff as fighting intensifies. Mike Suchila will also be joining us from Zambia to give us the latest news on the ground from that side. We'll be back with our top stories right after this break.
Let's get into your top stories. World Food Programme lifts suspension of operation in Sudan. The United Nations World Food Programme announced that it will promptly end the suspension of its operations in Sudan, which was implemented following the heartbreaking loss of one of its team members. WFP is rapidly resuming our programs to provide the life-saving assistance that many so desperately need right now. WFP Executive Director Cynthia McCain wrote on Twitter on Monday. Now, the WFP said on April 16th that it had temporarily halted all operations in Sudan after 3 of its employees were killed in clashes between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces a day earlier.
France lets aged African army veterans finally go home. 3 suitcases sit piled on top of one another in 95-year-old Yoro Diayo's cramped studio apartment outside Paris. After nearly 20 years of living thousands of miles from his family so he could claim his French army pension, the old soldier is finally being allowed to return to live in his native Senegal. It's a victory, the decorated veteran told AFP as he prepared to fly back on Friday with 8 other former soldiers aged 85 to 96. We're going home to live with our grandchildren. Hundreds of thousands of African soldiers fought for their colonial master France in the 2 world wars and against independence movements in Indochina and Algeria. But until this year, surviving veterans among the so-called Senegalese infantrymen had to live in France for half the year or lose their pension. In January, the French state dropped the condition, saying they could return home for good and continue receiving their monthly allowance of 950 euros. It would also pay for the flight and move of any veterans wishing to leave.
In our next story, Sudan hospitals short of medicine and staff as fighting intensifies. Medical staff working at the All Now Hospital in Omdurman, Sudan, have complained of lack of resources as they struggle to deal with the influx of patients. There is a huge lack in the medical teams and a huge lack in the hospital's facilities. In normal circumstances, there are teams. Now the shift is longer as not enough doctors exist. There are only 2 doctors or 1 doctor who covers 1 or 2 departments and sometimes 3 departments, says Dr. Ala Mohammed, a doctor at the All Now Hospital. Now, volunteers at the facility also complained there was no fuel for ambulances and the dialysis department was lacking in resources. At least 512 people, including civilians and combatants, have been killed since April 15th, with another 4,200 wounded, according to the Sudanese Health Ministry. The Doctors Syndicate, which tracks civilian casualties, has recorded at least 387 civilians killed and 1,928 wounded. Sudan's former Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok has issued a red flag over the ongoing violence in his country, warning the clashes could deteriorate into one of the worst civil wars than those experienced in Syria and Libya if the fighting is not stopped.
UNICEF lacks funding for life-saving services in Mozambique. The United Nations Children's Fund has warned that it has only received 29% of the funding needed to sustain its life-saving services for over 1 million children and families in Mozambique. In a situation report published on Thursday, UNICEF states that it has used $17.5 million carried over from last year, along with $15.2 million raised from the governments of Canada, Japan, United States, Germany, United Kingdom, Switzerland, and the European Union. UNICEF warns that there are increasing needs due to cholera, floods, and Cyclone Freddy, and estimates that this will require an additional $89.1 million in expenditure. However, it laments that by the end of March, it had only received $3.4 million to meet these additional needs, leaving a funding gap of over 96%.
Swinging over to England, King Charles settles into life as monarch after long wait. After waiting longer than any British heir to become monarch, King Charles has quietly settled into his new role with little of the drama some commentators had expected, but with family divisions and some fundamental issues still looming. The 74-year-old Charles, who will be formally crowned on Saturday, was the oldest sovereign to take the throne in a lineage that dates back to 1,000 years, when he succeeded his hugely popular mother, Queen Elizabeth, after her death last September. Now, she had reigned for 70 years. Since then, while the new king has given glimpses of future changes to the institution, the man who was known for his forthright defense of the environment, while Prince of Wales has not continued to voice the strong views that some critics believed would damage the institution.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories, Ethiopia arrests 47 after murder of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali. Ethiopian security forces said Sunday they had arrested 47 suspects after the killing of a leading member of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's ruling party, accusing them of having plotted to overthrow the authorities. Jeremiah Yeshitila, the head of the Prosperity Party in Amhara, was among 5 people killed in an attack on Thursday, according to the Northern Region's government. Ethiopia's Joint Security and Intelligence Task Force said 47 terror suspects had been detained in Amhara and found in possession of weapons, bombs and satellite communications equipment, according to a statement published by the state-run broadcaster EBC.
We'll be right back with news from Zambia.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 115.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
Now, before we cross over to Zambia to speak to Mr. Mike Sichula, let's take a look at the weather predictions.
Now, at least 11 Zambians caught up in the civil strife in Sudan have been evacuated to Zambia. Here to bring us this story is Mike Sichula. Good morning, Mike.
Africa, good morning.
Can you get into your first story, please?
Yes, like I did report last week that there were 33 Zambians in Sudan. 10 of them are currently in Ethiopia. Then the 11, they arrived in the country over the weekend. Then about 8 of those that were working for international organizations such as the United Nations, UNICEF, were evacuated to safer places by their employers. So according to the Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary, they received 11 Zambians and explained that the 11 reached out for help from the government. So the remaining Zambians caught up less than 5 are being also, plans are being made to ensure that they come back to Zambia or they go to Ethiopia for a safe place until the situation normalizes in Sudan. So far, no Zambians has been caught up in terms of maybe casualties and the like. Most of them are okay. Those that are remaining in Sudan, are also not in very dangerous places, but they also want to just be evacuated to Ethiopia or back to Zambia.
All right. Now, Mr. Sichula, a tourist expert has proposed to the government to support plans to establish a tourist cultural village in honor of first President Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. Please give us the details.
Yes. On 28th April last week, Zambia was observing Kenneth Kaunda Day, which is a public holiday. So a tourism expert, Mr. from Mambwe District, Zephaniah Kalea, has come up with a project proposal to build a tourism cultural village in honor of first President Dr. Kaunda and his wife, late wife Betty Kaunda. Mr. Kalea says the traditional leaders in the district where President Kaunda was born, Chinsali, have already been consulted over the matter. They have since appealed to government and other stakeholders that have passion for tourism to come on board and fund the projects. Various activities were held across the country to commemorate the Kenneth Kaunda Day, which falls every 28th of April. So, and again, this year's commemorations were being held under the theme KK the Unifier.
Now, in a related development, can you tell us more about the app that was developed, the tourism app that was developed by a Zambian student to promote the tourism in the country?
Yes, a third-year software engineering student at the Zambia University College of Technology has urged Zambian to promote tourism sector outside the country. Ernest Kapesa says he has developed an application called Ambia that will be showing tourism sites to the people before they come to Zambia. So Ernest wants to take advantage of the metaverse, which software giants Facebook owner is developing as a platform that tourism sites can be uploaded so that people who want to come to Zambia should see the sites wherever they are and also get attracted. So the idea is that in that application, most of the tourism hotspots in Zambia will be uploaded so that tourists within Africa, Zambia and beyond can also have this first-hand information of the places that they would want to see before they come to Zambia. So he's appealing to well-wishers to come on board and support this application. So he said the application will give people an idea of what they expect to see once they visit Zambia. Quite an interesting application that he has made, and the Vice President, Mrs. Mutarina Domango, has spoken to it, and we are hoping that the Zambia Tourism Agency are also going to get on board so they can help this idea become a reality.
I mean, that definitely is going to be useful to anyone planning to visit. I mean, it would be great to have something like that for everywhere in the world. And finally, Zambia has been appointed as chairperson of the SADC Malaria Elimination Council of Ministers for 2023 to 2025. Let's get into the full story.
Yes, according to the Minister of Health, Sylvia Maseo, she says this is a great honor for Zambia to be appointed to the position of chairperson. Ms. Maseo says the country will ensure that terms and reference are duly met during its tenure of office. She did also acknowledge that malaria remains a major public health concern globally and in the SADC region. So she says there's need to address, to increase access to prompt malaria diagnosis and treatment in hard-to-reach areas of SADC countries. So it is something that the Minister of Health is happy about, this chairmanship that has been bestowed on Zambia. And according to what she did say following this virtual meeting, is that Zambia is prepared to be the chairman of this organization and also seek to ensure that it drives the fight against malaria in the SADC region.
Thank you so much, Mike, for bringing us these stories.
Africa, good morning. Do have a blessed week. Thank you very much.
All right, now Yolanda now talks to Abigail Smith from the Fern Solutions about funeral planning, a much needed service while grieving the loss of a loved one. Let's take a look.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am joined with Abigail and we are going to talk about Fern Funeral Solutions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Yolanda, for inviting me.
Can you quickly tell us about starting this company?
Well, I was part of an exco team of one of the leading funeral homes in Namibia until my position was made redundant last year. And since my childhood, it's always been in my nature to be kind and generous. When we were hit by the pandemic, the obvious choice was for me to give up my executive seat at head office and move down to the branch to be on the ground with my staff. It became clear that the community that we serve do not know what to do when someone passes away. With hundreds of traumatized Namibians needing funeral assistance, even my own friends and colleagues, I found it very healing to be the familiar face at the funeral home. To guide them through the process, it was husbands, wives, parents, grandparents, even a newborn. And I mean, no one visits a funeral home by choice. And the demanding nature of the funeral industry requires a special kind of person. And with all of this in mind and now being unemployed, it was simply a natural choice for me to start my own business and as a funeral consultant and assist families at their homes. And that's a first for Namibia.
Wow.
You know, when someone passes away, you need to get up, you need to shower, you need to get in the car and drive to the funeral home. You don't want to do that when you're hurting so much. So that's where the idea was born. And I also want to offer pre-planning. It might sound morbid, but leaving clear instructions for your family, it's almost like a gift, and it avoids family fights, knowing what you want to happen.
Yeah.
And you can have control over it. You can say what flowers you want. You can ask what the people should wear. So it's part of life.
That's so funny, because I was speaking to Rolf Hansen of the Cancer Association, and he said exactly that. Because we were born, we have to die. It's just part of the natural cycle of life.
That is. And you know, I can help you prepare, not necessarily the process of dying, but prepare you for when you pass. Prepare your documents for you, get everything in order, have everything together that you know what to do and your family knows what to do. Just there to help you. It's taking out insurance, it's paying your municipal bill. Everything is organized in your life, but no one prepares for your death.
On that note, at what age should we be doing it? Because we all want to live in this bubble where people of old age passes away, but that is just not the case, full stop. At what age do I need to get all my things ready?
I don't think there's a rule on what age, but I think it's always important to have, even if you just have a little notebook with your passwords, and someone else must know what's going on.
And please go cancel that subscription.
And go cancel the subscription. Just always keep it in a safe place where someone close to you at least knows that there's a lot that needs to happen after you pass, and things that need to be taken care of, and it's important.
Can you quickly tell me, what does a funeral consultant do?
So I'm not an undertaker. An undertaker cares for and prepares the body for a burial or cremation. What I do is, when a family member passes away in hospital or old age home, you would contact me and I take over the process. From there, you can go home, you can be sad, be with your family, and look after each other at home. I call the funeral home to collect and transport your loved one to the funeral home, and then I would return to the hospital or the old age home to receive from the doctor the medical certificate and the cause of death, and I would come to you after a few hours, sit and consult with you. We complete all the paperwork, and then I'm ready to go to Home Affairs, stand in the queues, register the death, get all the supporting documents that goes with that, and make quite a number of copies, have them certified, and then we're ready to start the process with the funeral home for the burial or the cremation.
Let's take a look at the sports news from Ari Hokat.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news first. It's a Madrid Open that goes into week 2, and it's one of the big tournaments leading up to the French Open at Roland Garros in a month's time. It is best players in the world, men's and women's side, that play in the tournament, WTA and the ATP. On the men's side of the draw, number 6 seed Holger Rune, he's from Denmark. He's out of the tournament for the first top 10 seeds that's out. He lost in the round of 32. He lost to Alejandro Focchini. He is from Spain. The score is a tight game, 7-6, 5-7 and 7-6. Number 5 seed Andrei Rublev of Russia, he's through. He beat Yusuke Nishioka of Japan 6-2, 7-5. And then the 13th seed, it is Alexander Zverev of Germany, showing very good form. He easily beat Hugo Grevier of France by 6-1 and 6-love to advance to the round of 16. In the women's side of the draw, it is Jessica Pegula of the United States. She's number 3 seed. She's through. She beat Maria Pliskova by 6-4 and 7-6. And Jessica Pegula showing that she's going to be a threat on clay as well, more known to playing better tennis on the hard courts. 2 other Americans didn't win, though. That is countrywoman of Jessica Pegula. That is Coco Gauff. She's a number 6 seed. She's out of the tournament. She lost to Paula Badosa, and the score there was 6-3 and 6-love. Quite convincing win by the Spaniard. Then also it is Shelby Rogers. She's out. She lost to Irina Begu of Romania. The score 7-5 and 6-2. And now for MotoGP, motorcycle racing news, and it was a good weekend for Brad Binder on his KTM, South African born, and he's showing the world that he's very competitive in the MotoGP circuit. And it was the 4th MotoGP of the year, the event of the year, and he is now 3rd on the points log. That is Brad Binder. That's after finishing 2nd in the Spanish Grand Prix. So a great achievement by Brad Binder. He was just 2nd behind Francesco Bagnaia of Italy, and he was actually leading for almost 20 of the 24 laps. So it was a close 2nd place for Brad Binder in the Grand Prix. At the moment, it is Bagnaia that leads the points table. He's got 87 points, followed by Marco Bezzecchi of Italy on 65 points. He crashed out in the latest or the last MotoGP race. And then Brad Binder, he's on 62 points. He's in 3rd position on that points log. The 5th one of the year, next MotoGP race will be the French Grand Prix, French MotoGP Grand Prix, and that will be on the 14th of May. And continuing international sports news with cycling news, it is the Tour de Romandie that was concluded, and the winner there from Great Britain was Adam Yates. He won the 4th stage on Saturday, and he took the yellow jersey by that. It was in the Alps. It was a difficult race for him, but he won, and he had a 19-second lead over Matteo Jorgensen going into the 5th and final stage, but he held on to that lead, winning the title. So it is Adam Yates winning in a time of 17 hours, 12 minutes and 42 seconds, followed in 2nd place by Matteo Jorgensen of the USA. He's 20 seconds or 19 seconds behind him in 2nd place. And then in 3rd position, it's Diomano Garesu. He's from Italy, 27 seconds behind the winner. The 5th and final stage was won by Fernando Gaviria of Colombia, and his time 3 hours 58 minutes and 7 seconds, but that was not enough to get him into the top 3. The winner of this year, the 2023 Tour de Romandie, is Adam Yates of Great Britain. Closing off today's international sports news with golf news, and it was on the men's PGA. It was the Mexican Open that was concluded, and the new world rankings came out. The winner of the tournament, Tony Finau, he moves up from number 16 in the world to number 11 in the world. Getting closer to the top 10 in the world. The top 3 in the world is still John Rahm. He is in the 1st position. He came in 2nd position in Mexico in the Mexican Open. So he extended his lead on top of the world rankings. Number 2 at the moment, Scotty Scheffler of the USA. And 3rd best player in the world is Rory McIlroy of Northern Ireland. The best South African on the world rankings is Christian Besaidnout. He is 73rd on the world rankings. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again.
And with that, we've come to the end of our broadcast. But before we say goodbye, let's take a look at the highlights. World Food Programme lifts suspension of operations in Sudan. France lets aged African Army veterans finally go home.
Don't forget, you can catch Africa Good Morning tomorrow, same time, same place. I am Glenn Rashipura.
And I am Diana Master, and we wish you a lovely Tuesday ahead.